Hey everybody, welcome to Badge Banter, where we feature some incredible stories about the value of the ID badge and how it enables organizations to better recognize and connect people. I'm Lindsay Martin-Nez from Badge Pass, and I'm super excited to introduce you to today's guest. Today's guest is Jon Harris, who is the Director of Technical Integrations at Mobile Pro Systems and also the founder of Apex Performance, and someone that I feel like I'm lucky to call a friend. So thank you so much for being here, Jon. I'm glad to have you.
Likewise, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Lindsay.
Absolutely. Always fun to have conversations with you. But before we dive into kind of the meat of today's discussion, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your current role and what you do with Apex Performance from a coaching perspective as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in the security industry for about 20 years, and my first job I ever did is actually not too far down the road from the office I'm sitting in right now at University of St. Thomas, where I graduated from. I started my career as a security officer on the third shift, spending the first 4 hours of my evening locking all the doors on campus. I had a key ring with about 45 keys on it, and the second half unlocking all the doors so that the student and faculty could get in the morning. So little did I know that at 21 years old, I would gain this massive appreciation for electronic access control and badge access because of what I was doing, tramping up and down this campus in St. Paul, Minnesota. But so that's where it started. Did a lot of stuff along the way. Was a security manager, a technology project manager, kind of on the end user side, and then I transitioned into the technology side. First working for Linnell as a business development manager, and then got into product management, product development, did a bunch of different stuff, did some consulting. And then the last couple of years, I've been focused on technology partnership development and strategic product development and go-to-market strategy. So today I'm with a company called Mobile Pro Systems, and they make different types of security technology that you can deploy in places that are really hard to both power and communicate with or communicate in with like high consistency and high reliability. There's really two forms of like product that we deliver. One is like a mobile security trailer that you might see with like municipalities, smart cities, law enforcement, border patrol agencies, like all over the place where they have trailers with a bunch of different stuff on them. And then we have these other kind of pole mounted units that may be at gate entries and maybe on light poles around a city. Those can have all types of different things on them as well, different sensors, cameras, etc. We have some that you can deploy card readers on at a utility station or a telecom station in the middle of nowhere where you got to put something that has to communicate over cellular network and have some reliable power, solar power, battery backup, those kind of things. So it's a new part of the industry for me. I've been pretty access control heavy for the majority of my career. So it's a fun opportunity to pivot into more of the video camera space, which I haven't touched in a number of years. Did a lot of that with Hivewatch, obviously, where I was at before, where they do a lot with video integration. But yeah, so I have the support and service and tech support team reports to me, and then I'm working on strategic partnership development and adding some more focus on strategic product development and roadmap development for the company. So awesome company, been around for almost 20 years, and so we're really looking forward to kind of taking it to the next evolution of the security technology atmosphere over the coming years.
Awesome. Let me ask you this question because I was thinking about it when you said it out loud. When you talk about how you've been in the industry for 20 years, don't you also feel like that doesn't make sense because you should only be like 28?
Yeah, I mean, I tell people like emotionally, I feel like I'm like 27.
Uh-huh.
Whereas I'll be turning 43 in a month. So it does, and even that, like half my life already being in the industry doesn't feel right. But these gray hairs didn't come from nowhere. So
Yeah, no, I'm telling you, I feel the same way. When I say like 15 years, I'm like, oh my God, this
yeah.
doesn't make sense. I just started.
hmm
So you also do a bunch from like a coaching perspective, and we're going to talk a lot about like culture and performance and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So tell us just like real quick, briefly, what you do with Apex Performance.
Yeah, so about 4 years ago, well, for a long time I've been coaching and mentoring and helping others in the leadership performance and development space. And then I was at a company at the time where I didn't feel like I wasn't really able to flex that muscle, and I felt a little frustrated by the inability to be able to have a greater impact with what I felt was a core competency. And so I decided to develop a company and see if I could do that, independently of regardless of where I work. So I founded Apex Performance with a focus on delivering leadership and performance development services for the security industry. And so that's what I've been doing with Apex Performance for the last, 4 years or so. And so what does that look like? I've created an online community where we, like-minded individuals looking for personal development or kind of collaboration of high achievers and how to kind of take them from where they are to where they want to be, whether that's someone who's new to the industry, is trying to figure out how to navigate through different roles and functions. They want to get into a leadership role and don't quite know how. They're in a leadership role and maybe it's not going great and they're trying to figure out how to both sustain and grow with what they have, or maybe they just need some help kind of figuring out what's next for them. And so I do kind of like keynote speaking where I come in and work with a team and either at like sales kickoffs or executive team offsites and that kind of thing. I have a podcast that you have been on where I
Hmm.
bring people on and interview them and talk about how they've navigated those kind of challenges in their career or developed themselves personally and kind of share best practices with them. And then I do, team and one-on-one coaching for individuals, as well as I have content, workshops, online content and things like that within the community that people can have access to. I just submitted today a submission to Accelerize, which hopefully gets accepted. And that so those are the kind of things I do. Speak at GSX, Accelerize, ISC West, and other places as well. Really focusing on this topic matter.
Well, I love that. I mean, I think that's where you and I have always found a lot of synergy and kind of how we started a friendship was I think you and I share a lot of the same sentiments and energy around like culture and performance and leadership. And I think we think similarly sometimes when it comes to those particular topics. So, but let's start a little bit by talking about culture and performance. And these are obviously two things that I hear you talk a lot about with guests on your own podcast.
Mhm.
But what advice would you give to security leaders who are looking to like really build resilience or build like a really strong and resilient team?
I think the first thing is you got to understand what kind of team you have. So, what are the players that you have on your team, and what are their different levels of kind of capability and resiliency already, right? And so, I draw a lot of my coaching structures and frameworks and comparisons to the sports world where I come from, where I still coach today, where I was, a collegiate athlete and played sports my whole life, and so not everybody, like you don't have 10 Tom Brady's on your team, right? And that's not wrong or right, it just is. And so understanding the framework of the team that you have, and that it's not going to be a one size fits all for that organization. And then even defining like what does resilient mean for you? I mean, for me, when I look at it, it's like that, when stuff goes wrong, we're still able to execute. And so kind of defining kind of what that means for you, what does it mean in the context of your operation, and whether that and what you are, right? So like an integrator, a product manufacturer, and an actual like security manager, like security organization within a company, all have different missions, different focuses, and different challenges that they have to deal with. And so I think first kind of have to diagnose an environment, what's your goal, who's in your team, and what does resiliency looks like to you, and then really have a conversation with your team, let them know, like share that vision with them. Like, this is the kind of culture we're looking to build. This is how I want to do it. Share that vision because leadership, the definition that I hold of leadership is creating a shared vision and then inviting your team to carry and move that vision with you. And and so use this as an apparatus to again articulate the vision, the mission, share that with them, enroll them into it, and then have them be a part of that movement. And kind of with that, with all the apparatus and all the capabilities it takes to have those conversations, to develop that cohesiveness, like almost by default, you will create a more resilient team because you're on the same page. You've made your vision, your mission visible, and maybe not visible like putting on the wall, but like you've had that conversation. They understand it, they know it, and now everyone can move forward together with that single focus.
Do you think I agree with you? I think that there's a lot of vision casting in leadership and helping people understand where we're going and what we're trying to achieve. And when you're bought into that, like you feel like you're a part of something, you typically generate better success out of your team members. Do you think that that's difficult? Like that's something that leaders struggle with is, am I oversharing? Or like too many people are holding the vision too close to their chest and not sharing enough details, and then people feel lost. Like, where are we going? What are we doing?
Well, I would rather share too much than not enough. I think you have to have a big enough vision that everybody in your team or everybody in your company's vision and goals can fit inside of it.
Mm-hmm.
So if I you're a CEO of a company, and if you didn't tell people, like if you had people who didn't see a path for them to grow at Badge Pass, they may not want to stay there. But if you say like, I want to be the biggest credential management company in the world, like some folks would be like, that's crazy, right? But I'd rather be working for a company saying that than one who says like, we want to be the biggest company in the Southeast. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, if I want to become a like chief marketing officer someday, and can I do that in the best dang badge company in the Southeast, or can I do that with the best credential company in the world, right? So I think leaders are afraid often to share a big vision because they think people are going to laugh at them, and or and that they're going to get like they're going to get flack for it. But it should make you uncomfortable, and hopefully it makes other people a little bit uncomfortable. And then we say, okay, well then like how do we go figure that out together? And so I think the excitement that a little bit of that uncomfort would or discomfort would create is usually a net positive out of it. So I think we do tend to hold back. We don't want to share our vision. We don't want to share our goals. And it's usually because we don't want to look foolish. And if we just get comfortable with the discomfort and know that growth comes on the other side of that discomfort, then and the only way other people are going to do that too is if you show them. So that vulnerability is necessary to
Yeah.
say, and even asking that, like, what are your goals? And when you say, like, when I enroll you into my vision, I have to make sure your goals can fit inside of it. And maybe it's only temporary, right? And I think that's the thing too, is that we share this vision and we want and we have to understand that not everybody is going to be on the bus forever. And that's okay too, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
for a couple of reasons. One, if I want to grow my company to $100 million company, and this person's perfect for a $10 million company, but they're not right for a $50 million company, they may need to go find the right 50 million, like the other place to be at. Conversely, um, like they may be they may be the perfect one for me because they're excited about being they want to grow to $1 million company too, right? And they're just the right stage along, and they're just crazy enough to see the vision that I have as well. Uh,
Yeah.
and it's a mix, right? I think you have to be able to disassociate some of the feelings from it and have that mix of like, I'm going to share with you and you might not agree with me, you might not get excited about it as I am, and like that's okay. And and that this vision might be a 10-year vision, and that's okay too, and that things take time and it's not going to happen overnight. And again, being comfortable with being a little bit vulnerable, and I think sharing more when it comes to the vision and the goal part is better than holding it back because you might be afraid of what that judgment might look like.
Yeah. No, I think that's great advice. And you're right. I mean, it is a two-way street though, too. So, like your team members have to understand and be excited in some element of how their own personal goals fit in and align with the company's goals, in order for it all to work out. So I think that's good advice for sure. Um, Shifting gears kind of a little bit, but still kind of thinking about the people side of it. But you kind of look at not just our industry, but like society as a whole and evolution of technology in our industry and other industries. As technology continues to advance, do you think that like the human factor of organizations and companies is becoming more overlooked? Or do you think that because of the evolution in technology, the human component to our organizations is more important than ever before?
I mean, I think it can be both, right? I think it becomes both overlooked, but is also continuously important. So I think, it's one of those things where, well, I'll give you a great example, right? Like you expect when you call a help desk that you're going to get a robot, right? And so, but if that robot's going to help me solve my problem that quickly, I may prefer the robot because I just want an answer. But when it does it, I want a human because when I want to be able to talk to somebody, I want to talk to somebody, right? So there, I think it can be both, and I think we're seeing in our industry the massive impact of large language models, analytics, automation, cloud technologies. None of this being new,
Mhm.
um, and the the people part of it is so critical because you still need the people who know how to sell it, who know how to talk about it, who know how to maintain it. And ultimately, at the end of the day, like one of the at Mobile Pro, one of the things that sets us apart is that right across this wall that you can see off camera is our service and support team. And one of our critical differentiators is that you call, you get a person who's going to walk you through diagnosing everything about your platform, right? So like the personal touch, I think still matters and even matters, can matter more today because we're so used to not having it. Like when's the last, I think you even, example, you sent me a copy of your book with a handwritten note in it, right? Like
Mhm.
that matters. That's memorable. It's impactful. And so I think it kind of depends on like what we're doing. And I think we need to make room for both. And it's not a one's wrong or one's right. It's when to use what and when that personal touch still matters and still is critical.
Yeah, I think that a lot of times in the customer experience is where I feel like right now at Badge Pass we're trying to like over humanize things, like
Mm,
over personalize it to create like next level customer experiences. To your point, we do something similar when a partner calls in. We ensure it's my goal that you get support from one of our best support people, like top line support people on the phone. Not we call you back, but on that call at the time it's happening. And
yeah.
I mean, that's an investment on our end to have the staff and the team there to answer phone calls all the time. But how much better is it for me when I call someone and I get the answer and the support that I need right then and there rather than like, oh, someone will call you back when they're available? I realize it
Mm,
can't be perfect. That can't happen 100% of the time, maybe. But if that's the rule and the other is the exception, that's a much better experience. And the more you automate things and make things electronic and use technology, you lose some of that like human element of it too. And so it's interesting trying to strike the right balance for sure.
right.
So,
Absolutely.
man, well, let's kind of shift gears and talk about the industry. So, I can't have you on here and not talk about badges. Like, goes without saying that at some point we're going to talk about badges. And so, well, what do you think? Like, you kind of look at things. You and I have had this conversation numerous times, even previously, like last year, you were on Badge Banter and I was on your podcast. So, we've talked a lot about mobile credentials, physical credentials, but just looking at how organizations kind of view ID badges and physical credentials, like what do you think has been a shift in how companies think about those over the last few years?
Well, I'll start with maybe the individual versus the company, then I'll talk about company. I think one thing, a trend that I've noticed is um, the association with like personal brand and identity to the physical badge of a company is something that is showing up more and more. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. There's a whole generation of folks in every industry who are retiring. And when you look at like LinkedIn posts, retirees, what I often see is a picture of their company badge. And then it's this like nostalgic, like this was who I was, where I was, and where I was for so long. And
Mm.
it's this interesting, like this is a representation of not just like how I got in the building, but like this was me. Like this was me on my first day, and this was me when we rebranded from X company to Y company, and it's kind of like this like um scrapbook of their legacy there. So it's an interesting kind of personal identity marker for people and their association with the companies that they work for.
Mhm.
Um, in industry, I think it's become more of a, similar to this like technology versus person. In that same vein, I think um, so our mutual friends Bear Halverson and Ben Shibalik and I do a podcast series called Talking Shop, and we brought up this concept of, we ask three questions and then we kind of go back and forth about them. And one of the questions on one of our previous sessions was, will mobile credentialing ever fully replace physical badges? And kind of the dialogue was, it's not a one or the other, it's a complementary usage of them. Each has their use case. And where I landed is that no, they will not, because like we landed on we think it's a third option. Something else will will do it, whether it's some sort of worn technology or it's my biometrics or something else is going to do it, because like, you know, it's not a one for one replacement. And so I think that's the shift, is that for maybe the last 5 years, it's a thought where it's like, well, your badge, it's so inconvenient, it's so stupid, and like, and like, why do you need it? It breaks all the time, and blah blah blah. Your phone, that's the next thing, where it's just like, hey, what do you want? What do you prefer?
Mhm.
Um, Interestingly enough, because now we're seeing a pivot away from, like, people won't necessarily want to have their phone all the time. They maybe want to be disconnected. They don't want to be tethered to technology. And so there's this kind of potential momentum away, especially with some of the generation coming into the workforce or at the top of the workforce, right? So people who are more of in the retiring age, like they might need to have a smartphone. And so there's people at the younger age who are kind of rebelling against the like connection and the connected environment, and saying, I don't want to carry a phone all the time. I want to leave it at my desk. I want to do that. So it's now really user's choice. And I think that's a pivot to say, hey, we got to be able to support whatever the customer wants. And I still feel that in high security, kind of like high compliance, where I grew up, where I came from, the badge is always going to have to be the requirement, because visual identification is a necessity there. And I just don't see that changing. It's one of those, held beliefs that I just don't see in my lifetime, that that's going to be something, again, unless there's a third option, unless we just say, hey, my face, you have a reader that can read my face, and that's my credential. But there's still edge cases though. Like, there's no 100% solution. So I think the acceptance of that truth, I would say, or that kind of first principle of access control, no matter what our friends Rob Leidick and Phil Coppola and others who are the evangelists of the mobile credential, like, I think it's not an either or, it's an and more and more that we haven't even thought about yet.
What I loved, so I'm going to touch on I'm going to grab my badge. Hang on. I took it off because it didn't match my dress. But we obviously wear badges here. So what I was interested, you were talking about like the human element of it, not just the like utility element of it, like I use it to open a door. But I wear this, like I have a certain element of pride, like people who are retiring and they post like this is the place where I work. Like I wear this to lunch, and like there's some element of like I feel like I'm a part of this organization, like I'm proud to wear the badge, whatever. We've been doing things where on our badge designs we personalize them a lot with like interest icons. And so it's funny to watch like conversations happen. Like mine is a book and an airplane and a golf symbol. And so like conversations happen in the kitchen, and like someone runs into someone and they're like, oh, what's the airplane for? Like, love to travel, or I didn't know you love video games, or whatever it is, where people are like connecting with each other on a more personal level. And like people personalize them. Like we wear pins on our
Pins, yeah.
lanyards, conferences.
Let me tell you. So I love this, and we should be talking about this more often. Let me give you like some. So when I worked at United Technologies, which is now Raytheon, in the early days, you would have your program. So if you were part of a program, So like we had NASA, and so we were on, so you would have different icons on your badge for the programs that you participated in, or you would have pins on your lanyard for the different programs that you were a part of or projects. So like when they were on the 787 Dreamliner or when they were on, so there was this pride of like, it's almost like, you know, your sash when you were either a Girl Scout or a Boy Scout, where it was like, look at all the things I participated in.
Mhm.
And so that was interesting. But one of the things that is often missing in just like culture, I wanted to go tie this back to culture, the human connection and like how do I like just like have a conversation with somebody. So if I looked at your badge and was like, oh, you have a soccer icon. What's that about? It's like, oh yeah, I love soccer. Or my kids play. Like the human connection that would just be organic based on emblems that you can put on a badge that also creates the secure and access requirements that are necessary for building entry, but then are a spark for collaborative social interaction between people in the workplace and drive. That's what those are the things that security companies are always seeking to try to drive additional value for security things. And it's
Yes.
so simple as saying, I'm gonna when I onboard you, I'm gonna give you a list of 50 things and you pick two of them that you like, and they're gonna go on your badge and we'll reprint your badge every 3 years, right? And that like so instead of being like, oh yeah, it costs $7 to reprint your badge every time, if I said this is a if how much do we spend on pizza parties?
Yes.
Right? So imagine if we said instead of our employee engagement budget is going to go towards your hobby and like the likes that you have that think of like your Facebook profile basically we're going to put a little bit down your badge and turn this
Yeah.
security burden into a employee engagement tool. Like that's amazing. And I hope somehow your marketing and promoting what you just said as something into your customer and partner base. It's like Jake Vol who prints the logos on all the like, alarm panels that he sends out. Like that's brilliant.
Oh yeah, we this has been a huge initiative of ours this year, and we did a bunch of research around like the concept. It started with your name. So, previous badge designs, a lot of times your name would be kind of like small and not the focal point. And we were like, wait a minute, that's really the most important thing is the name on the badge from a connection perspective. And we did a bunch of research on like employee engagement goes up, employee retention, that you're more likely to stay at a place where people are recognizing you by name.
Yeah.
And like if you just hear your name more often, you feel more engaged. And so you combine that with what you're talking about, like the element of pride and what I've accomplished here, what I'm interested in, and people are, recognizing and connecting one another more all the time in the organization, like unbelievable. And that's like an intangible thing that's difficult to measure, but we get trapped in this like, is it good for security or how much does it cost to print that badge? And these things that they matter, sure, but there's all these other things that matter too. And when we can focus on like the combining the intangible, like feel good elements of it to the actual utility of it, like that's where I think that we can really set ourselves apart.
And I think just maybe to close that topic is that the commentary that we'll get from this from like hardcore security professionals is the insider threat. Well, if I know things about you, I can, socially engineer and do that. And they're not wrong.
Mm-hmm.
There also is a very small percentage of the people who are buying and using badges where that matters too. And so we shouldn't just like there again, like I say, high security, I think will continue to have badges, so mobile might not be a good fit there. There's a segment of the market that mobile's a perfect fit for.
Mm-hmm.
So again, both things can take place. There's a segment of the market that doesn't want to have anything like personally identifying on the badge, or I had a policy when I was a security director that you were not allowed to wear your badge off premises
Mm-hmm.
or at non-business functions. So it didn't matter what was on it because you could only wear it there. Now, like people, the person is always the weakest link
Sure.
in a security apparatus, so it doesn't change any of that. But you don't throw out an entire 100% of a great idea because
It doesn't work
10,
100% of the time.
10% of the industry doesn't want to adopt it. And
Yeah.
so way more. like and even places like think about like high like tech places, and especially in the return to work kind of mode that we've been in for the last maybe 18 to 24 months, like you got to find ways to get people to feel more connected, to feel more engaged, and to want to stay. So if everything you just said is true, then if I told you make their names bigger on their badges and put a couple pictures on it and your retention could go up 15 to 20%, like would you do that? Would you invest a couple $100 in badge ink spend to
Yeah.
do that? Like, I don't know, feels like it's worth trying.
Can't hurt, right? It's a no-brainer. And it's just an enhancement to a product that people are already utilizing. It's just thinking about it differently. So I love that you're getting it. This makes me really happy. I love when there's synergy and the messaging makes sense and I'm not just crazy. So anyway, you mentioned to me in April in Las Vegas, we missed each other at ISC West because you were there for like no time at all.
Yeah.
But you were like, we've got to connect because I've got a really cool badge story to share with you. And I was like, okay, well, first of all, how often does that happen? But we didn't.
Yeah.
And so then I was like, we'll save it for badge banter. So I've been waiting to hear the story for like 2 months now. So I'm ready for your really cool badge story now, John.
Okay. So I started here at Mobile Pro on March the 5th. And on March the 6th, there was a huge snowstorm. And I'm like I can't stay home on my second day of work. I gotta go in. And so shoveled out my driveway, tried to, I mean, we're talking like it was like 12 inches of snow in a very short period of time. My street wasn't plowed, but I had parked facing down my driveway so I could just plow right up. So load up my bag, load up everything, off I go. I get to I got my backpack next to me. I get about, out of my neighborhood and I'm going, I go, damn, I forgot my badge. And the voice that popped in my head was Rob Leidick, who would always say, "No one will ever go back for their badge." And I'm like, I mean, I'm brand new. I don't know anybody at work yet. If I get there, like, I don't know if everyone's gonna be able to let me in. I'm like, I gotta go back for my badge. Like, I can't, like, I gotta have it. I don't, and part of me was almost like, and I have to prove Rob wrong that people will go back for their badge. I'm going back for the badge. So I'm pulling to like go through a neighborhood to come back around, and everything on my dash starts. Oh, actually, no. Let me get to that next. I back around. My wife runs out with my badge. I get stuck in the snow. And so now my wife is like, "Are you kidding me? I'm here. I'm having to push you out." So we're pushing out. A neighbor stops. I finally get my car out of the snow. I'd been like gunning it. So then I get out of the neighborhood, and as I get to a stoplight, um, all the alerts and alarms on my car start going off. And I'm like, this can't be good. I've never seen anything like this before. And it's like getting hard to steer. And so I kind of pull into a neighborhood to pull around to go back to my street, and my car just dies. And I'm sitting here going, oh my God, when I was gunning my car, trying to get out of the snow, I ruined it. I broke it all because I went back for my badge. It was like, damn it. Like, if I hadn't gone back for my badge, this would never happen to me. So I sit there, I get my car towed, blah, 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 gets to the shop. Well, come to find out, like I had like a faulty alternator and some other things in my battery that had failed. And and it could have happened like at any time, this could have just died. I have to take the highway to work. And um, this could have happened. The car could have died going 70 on the highway, and I would have lost all control. Like the brakes, everything just stopped. So I drive like 20 minutes to work, and 18 minutes is on a highway. If I hadn't gone back to like going back to get my physical badge might have saved my life.
This is the greatest story of all time.
Right? So
Yeah.
and so when I fixed my car, the guy's like, "Man, you're lucky this happened when it happened and where it happened." I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "If you had been driving on the highway, like in this, like, could you imagine?" I was like, "Holy shit!" So, um, going back to make sure I had my physical badge so I could get into work could have saved my life. It definitely saved my car, and like I was, so the first thing I wanted to do was like reach out to you and say, "I got to tell you the story about how making sure I had my badge might have saved my life."
Oh my goodness. I love that story so much. And you heard it here first. Like, go back for your badge. If that,
Yeah, it might save your life.
it might save your life. That's hilarious. I normally wouldn't use that dramatic of a statement on it, but in that story,
I
that worked
mean,
well. So that's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that story with us. It made my day. I'm sure it'll make some other people's day too, who were called out on the episode. But no, that was very entertaining. So, and now a reminder to everybody to go back for their badge.
Yeah.
So we've covered a lot of topics today, and we could probably stay here and talk about the industry and badges and leadership and stuff for hours. But unfortunately, we just don't have time for that today. So I do have one segment though that is becoming quickly one of my favorite parts of season 2 of Badge Banter, which is Badge Blitz. And so this is a very short 60-second segment where I'm going to start a timer and I'm just going to ask you some rapid fire questions that you did not receive in advance, so you couldn't have prepped for these. And you're just going to go with your gut reaction to each of these.
All right. Let's do it.
All right, are you ready?
Yep.
All right. Book you recommend more than any other?
Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink.
I love that one. What's your favorite mental reset activity?
Oh, meditation. Well, running, then meditation, but running first.
Okay. Would you rather explain the difference between smart cards and prox cards to a toddler or to your grandparent?
Oh man, a toddler.
Me too. What's one gadget that you cannot live without?
Probably my smartwatch. Probably my Apple Watch.
All right. What's the first word that comes to mind when you hear the word legacy system?
Legacy system. I want to say like Pro Watch. It's an act that's like there's a lot to that.
Okay.
It was like the first system I ever used. So and there's PTSD around it. So no shots to Honeywell. You guys are fantastic, but that's what comes to mind.
That's fair. Okay. Well, good. Well, we ran out of time, but those were great answers. So I appreciate that. I'm thinking that what would be fun is if I tried to explain the difference between smart and prox to my toddler, and then also tried to explain it to one of my grandparents and recorded the difference.
Yeah. I'm just thinking that like the questions that I would get from my toddler would be more entertaining.
Yeah. Well, most of mine would just be why.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway, that's potentially a future badge banter episode. Maybe we could try that out one day.
I think it'd be a great one.
I think so too. Well, thank you so much for being here today, Jon. I always really appreciate your insight. Plus, you're just a lot of fun to talk to. But thanks so much for joining us. I really enjoyed catching up with you.
Likewise, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And to everybody else, we hope you'll join us next time as we take you beyond the badge.